Okay, welcome everyone. We are in book one. Welcome to the Savitri circle. We're in book one, Canto IV, the secret knowledge, and we're going to back up just a tiny bit from where we left off and begin halfway down on 52, page 52, and then read through the entire next section, and then stop there for discussion. We will start with meditation. And then after that, why don't we go John Robert, Andrea, and then me. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Hi.
So we decided to back up a tiny bit.
Okay.
So we'll start on page 52. John Robert, why don't you read the whole page, since reading a half page will just kind of throw off the rhythm. Maybe start at the top for there she yearns. And then we'll go John Robert, Andrea, me, and then Jeffrey. And I think Andrea recalls that we discussed this last section. I don't really recall anything. So we decided to read through the entire next section. I don't know, do you have page numbers, Jeffrey? It's the section that starts on 55 and ends on page 6.
55 doesn't do anything for me. I need the words that you start with.
Okay, we'll read through the entire. We're backing up. We're talking about the section that starts a consciousness that knows not its own truth. That's the new section. So we'll read that entire section, but we decided to back up approximately 1, 2, 3 pages or so. And I'm only recommending to start at the top of the page, John Roberts, so that it doesn't throw off our reading rhythm for the she yearns. So I don't know how to help you, Jeffrey, without page numbers, but yeah. Anyhow, it's at the top of page 52.
I got it now. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Book 1, the Book of Beginnings, Canto for the secret knowledge continued. For these she yearns and feels them destined hers. Heaven's privilege she claims as her own right. Just as her claim, the all-witnessing gods approve, clear in a greater light than reason owns. Our intuitions are its title deeds. Our souls accept what our blind thought use. Earth's winged chimeras are truth's steeds in heaven, the impossible God's signs of things to be. But few can look beyond the present state or overleap this matted hedge of sense. All that transpires on earth and all beyond are parts of an illimitable plan the one keeps in his heart and knows alone. Our outward happenings have their seed within, and even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. The laws of the unknown create the known. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings, which rarely we surprise or vaguely feel, are an outcome of suppressed realities that hardly rise into material day. They are born from the Spirit's sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency. But who shall pierce into the cryptic gulf and learn what deep necessity of the soul determined casual deed and consequence? Absorbed in a routine of daily acts, our eyes are fixed on an external scene. We hear the clash of the wheels of circumstance and wonder at the hidden cause of things. Yet, a foreseeing knowledge might be ours if we could take our spirit's stand within, if we could hear the muffled daemon voice.
Too seldom is the shadow of what must come cast in an instant on the secret sense, which feels the shock of the invisible, and seldom in the few who answer give, the mighty process of the cosmic will communicates its image to our sight, identifying the world's mind with ours. Our range is fixed within the crowded arc of what we observe and touch and thought can guess, and rarely dawns the light of the unknown, waking in us the prophet and the seer. The outward and the immediate are our field. The dead past is our background and support. Mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are slaves to our acts. We cannot free our gaze to reach wisdom's sun. Inheritor of the brief animal mind, man, still a child in nature's mighty hands, in the succession of the moments lives. To a changing present is his narrow right. His memory stares back at the phantom past. The future flees before him as he moves. He sees imagined garments, not a face. Armed with a limited, precarious strength, he saves his fruits of work from adverse chance. A struggling ignorance is his wisdom's mate. He waits to see the consequence of his acts. He waits to weigh the certitude of his thoughts. He knows not what he shall achieve or when. He knows not whether at last he shall survive, or end like the mastodon and the sloth, and perish from the earth where he was king. He is ignorant of the meaning of his life. He is ignorant of his high and splendid fate. Only the immortals on their deathless heights, dwelling beyond the walls of time and space, masters of living, free from the bonds of thought, were overseers of fate and chance and will, and experts of the theorem of world need, can see the idea, the might that changed time's course, come maned with light from undiscovered worlds, here while the world toils on with its deep blind heart. Let's see if that is a full stop or a comma. The galloping hooves of an unforeseen event, bearing the superhuman rider near, and, impassive to earth's din and startled cry, return to the silence of the hills of God. As lightning leaps, as thunder sweeps, they pass and leave their mark on the trampled breast of life.
Above the world creators stand. In the phenomenon, see its mystic source. These heed not the deceiving outward play. They turn not to the moment's busy tramp, but listen with the still patience of the unborn for the slow footsteps of far destiny approaching through huge distances of time, unmarked by the eye that sees effect and cause, unheard mid the clamor of the human plain. Attentive to an unseen truth, they seize a sound as of invisible augur wings, voices of an unplumbed significance, mutterings that brood in the core of matter's sleep. In the heart's profound audition, they can catch the murmurs lost by life's uncaring ear, a prophet speech in thought's omniscient trance. Above the illusion of the hopes that pass, behind the appearance and the overt act, behind this clockwork chance and vague surmise, amid the wrestle of force, the trampling feet, across the cries of anguish and of joy, across the triumph, fighting and despair, they watch the bliss for which earth's heart has cried on the long road which cannot see its end, winding undetected through skeptic days, and to meet it, guide the unheedful, moving world.
Thus will the masked transcendent mount his throne, when darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp. As a thief's in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his house. A voice ill-heard shall speak, the soul obey, a power into mind's inner chamber steal, a charm and sweetness open life's closed doors, and beauty conquer the resisting world, the truth light capture nature by surprise. A stealth of God compel the heart to bliss, and earth grow unexpectedly divine. In matter shall be lit the spirit's glow, in body and body kindled the sacred birth. Night shall awake to the anthem of the stars, The days become a happy pilgrim march, our will a force of the eternal's power, and thought the rays of a spiritual sun. A few shall see what none yet understands. God shall grow up, while the wise men talk and sleep. For man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not, till the work is done.
The page goes on to the word emptiness, like a thought persisting in a wide emptiness.
No, mine stops there and then it goes to a consciousness.
Oh, yes, but I mean, we're reading a page each.
Okay. So you wanted me to keep
Does
going,
that make
sorry.
sense? Yeah, like a thought persisting in wide emptiness.
Okay. A consciousness that knows not its own truth, a vagrant hunter of misleading dawns, between the being's dark and luminous ends, moves here in a half-light that seems the whole. An interregnum in reality cuts off the integral thought, the total power. It circles or stands in a vague interspace, doubtful of its beginning and its close, or runs upon a road that has no end. Far from the original dusk, the final flame, in some huge void unconscious, it lives, like a thought persisting in a wide emptiness.
As if an unintelligible phrase suggested a million renderings to the mind, it lends a purport to a random world. A conjecture leaning upon doubtful proofs, a message misunderstood, a thought confused, missing its aim, is all that it can speak, or a fragment of the universal word. It leaves two giant letters void of sense, while without sanction turns the middle sign carrying an enigmatic universe, as if a present without future or past, repeating the same revolutions whirl, turned on its axis in its own inane. Thus is the meaning of creation veiled. For without context, reads the cosmic page. Its signs stare at us like an unknown script, as if appeared screened by a foreign tongue, or code of splendor signs without a key, a portion of a parable sublime. It wears to the perishable creature's eyes the grandeur of a useless miracle, wasting itself that it may last a while. A river that can never find its sea. It runs through life and death on an edge of time. A fire in the night as its mighty actions blaze. This is our deepest need, to join once more what now is parted opposite and twain, remote in sovereign spheres that never meet, or fronting like far poles of night and day. We must fill the immense lacuna we have made, re-wed the closed finite's lonely consonant with the open vowels of infinity. A hyphen must connect matter and mind, the narrow isthmus of the ascending soul. We must renew the secret things. Our hearts recall the lost divine idea, reconstitute the perfect word, unite the Alpha and Omega in one sound. Then shall the spirit and nature be at one.
Two are the ends of the mysterious plan. In the wide, signless ether of the self, in the unchanging silence, white and nude, aloof, resplendent like gold dazzling suns, veiled by the ray no mortal eye can bear, the spirits bare and absolute potencies burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God. A rapture and a radiance and a hush, delivered from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain. In his inalienable bliss they live. Immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power, calm they repose on the eternal will. Only his law they count and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Implacable in their timeless purity, all barter or bribe of worship they refuse. Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer, they reckon not our virtue and our sin. They bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error and its reign. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree. A deep surrender is their source of might, a still identity their way to know. Motionless is their action, like a sleep, at peace regarding the trouble beneath the stars, deathless, watching the works of death and chance, immobile, seeing the millenniums pass, untouched, while the long map of fate unrolls. They look on our struggle with impartial eyes, and yet without them, cosmos could not be.
Impervious to desire and doom and hope, their station of inviolable might, moveless, upholds the world's enormous task. Its ignorance is by their knowledge lit. Its yearning lasts by their indifference. As the height draws the low ever to climb, as the breadths draw the small to adventure vast, their aloofness drives man to surpass himself. Our passion heaves to wed the eternal's calm. Our dwarf search mind to meet the omniscient's light. Our helpless hearts to enshrine the omnipotent's force. Acquiescing in the wisdom that made hell and the harsh utility of death and tears, acquiescing in the gradual steps of time, careless they seem of the grief that stings the world's heart, careless of the pain that rends its body and life. Above joy and sorrow is that grandeur's walk. They have no portion in the good that dies. Mute, pure, they share not in the evil done. Else might their strength be marred and could not save. Alive to the truth that dwells in God's extremes, awake to a motion of all-seeing force, the slow outcome of the long ambiguous years, and the unexpected good from woeful deeds. The immortal sees not as we vainly see. He looks on hidden aspects and screened powers. He knows the law and natural line of things, undriven by a brief life's will to act, unharassed by the spur of pity and fear. He makes no haste to untie the cosmic knot or the world's torn, jarring heart to reconcile. In time, he waits for the eternal's hour, yet a spiritual secret is there, while a tardy evolution's coils wind on, and nature hews her way through adamant. A divine intervention thrones above.
Alive in the dead, rotating universe, we whirl not here upon a casual globe, abandoned to a task beyond our force, even through the tangled anarchy called fate, and through the bitterness of death and fall, an outstretched hand is felt upon our lives. It is near us in unnumbered bodies and births. In its slackening grasp, it keeps for us safe the one inevitable, supreme result no one can take away, and no doom change, the crown of conscious immortality, the Godhead promised to our struggling souls when first man's heart dared death and suffered life. One who has shaped this world is ever its Lord. Our errors are his steps upon the way. He works through the fierce vicissitudes of our lives. He works through the hard breath of battle and toil. He works through our sins and sorrows and our tears. His knowledge overrules our nescience. Whatever the appearance we must bear, whatever our strong ills and present fate, when nothing we can see but drift and bail, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. After we have served this great divided world, God's bliss and oneness are our inborn right. A date is fixed in the calendar of the unknown, an anniversary of the birth sublime. Our soul shall justify its checkered walk. All will come near that now is naught or far. These calm and distant mights shall act at last. Immovably ready for their destined task, the ever-wise, compassionate brilliances await the sound of the incarnate's voice to leap and bridge the chasms of ignorance and heal the hollow yearning gulfs of life and fill the abyss that is the universe.
Here, meanwhile, at the Spirit's opposite pole, in the mystery of the deeps that God has built for his abode below the thinker's sight, in this compromise of a stark absolute truth with the light that dwells near the dark end of things, in this tragicomedy of divine disguise, this long far seeking for joy ever near, in the grandiose dream of which made, in this gold dome on a black dragon base, the conscious force that acts in nature's breast, a dark-robed laborer in the cosmic scheme, carrying clay images of unborn gods, executrix of the inevitable idea, hampered, enveloped by the hoops of fate, patient trustee of slow eternal time, absolves from hour to hour her secret charge. All she foresees in masked imperative depths. The dumb intention of the unconscious gulfs answers to a will that sees upon the heights. And the evolving word's first syllable, ponderous, brute-sensed, contains its luminous close, privy to a summit victory's vast descent, and the portent of the soul's immense uprise. So are we going on from here, or are we going to stop and talk about the section that we just read?
I don't know. It's up to us.
Anybody have a...
I'm good to keep going, I feel like.
I don't have any burning comments or questions or anything.
Okay, I'll just proceed until the end of the page then. All here, where each thing seems its lonely self, are figures of the soul transcendent one. Only by him they are. His breath is their life. An unseen presence molds the oblivious clay. A playmate in the mighty mother's game, one came upon the dubious whirling globe to hide from her pursuit in force and form. A secret spirit in conscious sleep, a shapeless energy, a voiceless word. He was there before the elements could emerge, before there was light of mind or life could breathe.
Accomplice of her cosmic huge pretense, his semblances he turns to real shapes and makes the symbol equal with the truth. He gives to his timeless thoughts a form in time. He is the substance. He is the self of things. She has forged from him her works of skill and might. She wraps him in the magic of her moods and makes of his myriad truths her countless dreams. The master of being has come down to her, an immortal child born in the fugitive years. In objects wrought, in the persons she conceives, dreaming she chases her idea of him, and catches here a look and there a jest. Ever he repeats in them his ceaseless births. He is the maker and the world he made. He is the vision and he is the seer. He is himself the actor and the act. He is himself the knower and the known. He is himself the dreamer and the dream. There are two who are one and play in many worlds. In knowledge and ignorance they have spoken and met, and light and darkness are their eyes' interchange. Our pleasure and pain are their wrestle and embrace. Our deeds, our hopes, are intimate to their tale. They are married secretly in our thought and life. The universe is an endless masquerade, for nothing here is utterly what it seems. It is a dream-fact vision of a truth, which, but for the dream, would not be wholly true. The phenomenon stands out significant against dim backgrounds of eternity. We accept its face and pass by all it means. A part is seen, we take it for the whole. Thus have they made their play with us for roles. Author and actor with himself as seen, he moves there as a soul, as nature she.
Here on earth, where we must fill our parts, we know not how shall run the drama's course. Our uttered sentences veil in their thought. Her mighty plan she holds back from our sight. She has concealed her glory and her bliss, and disguised the love and wisdom in her heart. Of all the marvel and beauty that are hers, only a darkened little can we can feel. He too wears a diminished Godhead here. He has forsaken his omnipotence. His calm he has foregone, and infinity. He knows her only. He has forgotten himself. To her he abandons all to make her great. He hopes in her to find himself anew, incarnate, wedding his infinity's peace to her creative passion's ecstasy. Although possessor of the earth and heavens, he leaves to her the cosmic management and watches all, the witness of her scene. A supernumerary on her stage, he speaks no words or hides behind the wings. He takes birth in her world, waits on her will, divines her enigmatic gestures sense. The fluctuating chance turns of her mood, works out her meanings she seems not to know, and serves her secret purpose in long time. As one too great for him, he worships her. He adores her as his regent of desire. He yields to her as the mover of his will. He burns the incense of his nights and days, offering his life, a splendor of sacrifice, a rapt solicitor for her love and grace. His bliss in her to him is his whole world. He grows through her in all his being's powers. He reads by her God's hidden aim in things, or a courtier in her countless retinue, content to be with her and feel her near. He makes the most of the little that she gives, and all she does drapes with his own delight.
A glance can make this whole day wonderful. A word from her lips with happiness wings the hours. He leans on her for all he does and is. He builds on her largesses his proud, fortunate days, and trails his peacock plumage joy of life and suns in the glory of her passing smile. In 1,000 ways he serves her royal needs. He makes the hours pivot around her will, makes all reflect her whims. All is their play. This whole wide world is only he and she. I'm just needing a little help with the she. Is it who
Simplified nature.
Okay.
Yeah. Soul and nature, he and she. Simplified.
Or you could say, he is the presence and she is the creative power.
Yeah.
That's why I said simplified. When we get into creative power, it's creatrix, which is Maya, but it's also, in some ways, it's prakriti, which is the executrix, and in some ways, it's shakti, which is the mediatrix. It gets really complex.
Well, it's all the mother.
Yeah,
it's all the mother in her many aspects.
Yeah, there we go. And there's a lot there too to unpack. We see Saraswati, we see Kali. There's a lot there.
One other thing I'd like to just point out, this canto is called The Secret Knowledge. And especially in this canto, Sri Aurobindo has been, this part of the canto, this section, Sri Aurobindo has really been saying very explicitly, what is the secret knowledge? There are two who are at play in many worlds. The universe is an endless masquerade, for nothing here is utterly what it seems. This whole wide world is only he and she. Those are all very specific descriptions of the secret knowledge.
And it's very cosmic in scope, right, as well.
I would say.
I mean, it reads like an astronomy text to some extent. The worlds and the suns. And
Yeah. And at the same time, this last paragraph, that last piece, a glance can make his whole day wonderful. I am always seeing Mother and Sri Aurobindo, actually, their interaction, because he was completely at her service. And of course, she would say she would only do his will. They had this complete he and she mystery that played itself out between them.
Andrea, I have a much more pedestrian image when I think of glance, the power of a glance.
Uh-huh.
And the pedestrian image is of a high school scene. and there's a young man who's, he's a football star or something. And he looks at this girl and he sees her. She's never been seen before. He sees her. And with that, she's like she comes into her own as a young woman, and she begins to pay attention to herself, to relationship, to the potential of he and she together. And Sri Aurobindo has a sonnet called Shiva, which is the exemplar of that, of he and she, and it has a glance, has that word, a glance in it as well. So, like I say, much more pedestrian look. Could go the other way too, of a young woman seeing this young man, and all of a sudden he's really seen, first time in his life. And then creation starts to happen.
As you're talking, John Robert, I'm loving bringing in the developmental processes that we all go through with this. It's beautiful to think about ourselves in that situation where one glance can change a lot. A moment of recognition.
And that was also really the truth many people experience with Mother, just one glance of her, one catching her eyes could change them, and bring such sweetness and joy. I mean, here this, and suns in the glory of her passing smile. I'm sure that's what Sri Aurobindo experienced, that whatever small gifts she was able to cast his way because she was so busy organizing and doing everything, like she is the mother, that all of those would be these gifts of joy to him.
Shall I keep reading?
I was just going to add this. So it is the mother. It can also be said that this is matter, right? It's the same root, and it's the visible eternal and the unseen, the play of those two things. I like just thinking in kind of in terms of just raw matter too. But yes, I'd love it if you kept reading, Jeffrey.
I have one more thing to follow up on that, Matteo. On page 57, Sri Aurobindo says, the Alpha and Omega in one sound, then shall the spirit and nature be at one. And so he first of all, he says there are two things that happen here. And the first one is, this great vision of these potencies of the spirit far above us that are not affected by us. And eventually he says what they do is they give us it's like there's something for us to reach for. They create aspiration in us, even if they don't come down here and do anything. They're just watching. And then he says the second thing is, let's see if I can find it here. Here, meanwhile, at the spirit's opposite pole, in the mystery of the deeps that God has built. And he goes on, and finally he comes to the conscious force that acts in nature's breast. So then he's talked about these great spirit powers, and then he comes to the other end of the pole, which is matter, as you were saying, and the force of the divine that operates in matter and causes evolution and emergence.
That brings me back to the Alpha and Omega, the page before that. He says it leaves two giant letters void of sense, which I'm just thinking that must be Alpha and Omega, while without sanction turns the middle sign, carrying an enigmatic universe. Does anybody know what the middle letter in the Greek alphabet is? I bet that refers to the middle letter between the Alpha and Omega. But I don't know the Greek alphabet. No?
I think about it as Om, the one word with three letters, A-U-M. And a little bit farther down the page, Sri Aurobindo says, thus is the meaning, because this middle letter is undefined to us. We don't see it. He says, for without context reads the cosmic page. And without that middle letter, we don't have this cosmic context that Jeffrey was talking about.
Right, there's no space. Right, so maybe that is just the U of the Om.
And I'm just remembering the Mandukya Upanishad does an exposition of the three letters where the U is Hiranyagarbha, is dream consciousness. And he does mention, so it's waking consciousness, dream. A is waking consciousness, U is dream consciousness, is dreamless sleep consciousness. And then the fourth, Turiya, is the pause afterwards. That's the super conscient causal consciousness. So the U is dream. And he brings us to dreaming on the top of 61. It's mentioned a couple of times. And makes of his myriad truths her countless dreams. Dreaming, she chases her idea of him. In some way, this is reference to the middle letter of Om. And there is commentary. I think that there's commentary on the Mandukya. But it's super clear in the Mandukya how it walks through this. And these are things that he's developing all the way into the 11th book when he does the exposition of Virat and Hiranyagarbha in the Book of Everlasting Day. He kind of expands that out in a massive way. Jeffrey, are you reading a PDF?
No, it's a Kindle book.
Oh, it's a Kindle book. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Does PDF work on that? Because I can send you a PDF with page breaks and things like that.
I think I might have actually downloaded off that Aurobindo site.
Yeah,
the PDF version, but all of my notes are in the Kindle version, so
okay.
I'm hesitant to switch because I would lose all the notes that I've been making. So yeah.
So if you continue on the next piece, then you would go on to, he is driven by her sweet and dreadful force.
Okay. This is the knot that ties together the stars. This is the knot that ties together the stars. The two who are one are the secret of all power. The two who are one are the might and right in things. His soul, silent, supports the world and her. His acts are her commandments' registers. Happy, inert, he lies beneath her feet. His breast he offers for her cosmic dance, of which our lives are the quivering theater. And none could bear but for his strength within, yet none would leave because of his delight. His works, his thoughts have been devised by her. His being is a mirror vast of hers. Active, inspired by her, he speaks and moves. His deeds obey her heart's unspoken demands. Passive, he bears the impacts of the world as if her touch is shaping his soul and life. His journey through the days is her sun march. He runs upon her roads, hers is his course. A witness and student of her joy and dole, partner in her evil and her good, he has consented to her passionate ways. He is driven by her sweet and dreadful force.
His sanctioning name initials all her works. His silence is his signature to her deeds. In the execution of her drama's scheme, in her fancies of the moment and its mood, in the march of this obvious, ordinary world, where all is deep and strange to the eyes that see, and nature's common forms are marvel wefts. She, through his witness sight and motion of might, unrolls the material of her cosmic act. Her happenings that exalt and smite the soul, her force that moves, her powers that save and slay, her word that in the silence speaks to our hearts, her silence that transcends the summit word, her heights and depths to which our spirit moves, her events that weave the texture of our lives and all by which we find or lose ourselves, things sweet and bitter, magnificent and mean, things terrible and beautiful and divine. Her empire in the cosmos she has built. He is governed by her subtle and mighty laws. His consciousness is a babe upon her knees, his being a field of her vast experiment. Her endless space is the playground of his thoughts. She binds to knowledge of the shapes of time and the creative error of limiting mind and chance that wears the rigid face of fate, and her sport of death and pain and nescience, his changed and struggling immortality. His soul is a subtle atom in a mass, his substance a material for her works. His spirit survives amid the death of things. He climbs to eternity through being's gaps. He is carried by her from night to deathless light. This grand surrender is his free will's gift. His pure transcendent force submits to hers.
In the mystery of her cosmic ignorance, in the insoluble riddle of her play, a creature made of perishable stuff, in the pattern she has set for him, he moves. He thinks with her thoughts, with her trouble his bosom heaves. He seems the thing that she would have him seem. He is whatever her artist will can make. Although she drives him on her fancy's roads, at play with him as with her child or slave, to freedom and the eternal's mastery and immortality stand above the world, she moves her seeming puppet of an hour. Even in his mortal session in body's house, an aimless traveler between birth and death, ephemeral dreaming of immortality, to reign she spurs him. He takes up her powers. He has harnessed her to the yoke of her own law. His face of human thought puts on a crown. Held in her leash, bound to her veiled caprice, he studies her ways, if so he may prevail, even for an hour, and she work out his will. He makes of her his moment passion's serf. To obey she feigns, she follows her creature's lead. For him she was made, lives only for his use. By conquering her, then is he most her slave. He is her dependent, all his means are hers. Nothing without her he can, she rules him still. At last he wakes to a memory of self. He sees within the face of deity, the Godhead breaks out through the human mold. Her highest heights she unmasks and is his mate. Till then he is a plaything in her game, her seeming regent, yet her fancy's toy. A living robot moved by her energy's springs, he acts as in the movements of a dream, an automaton stepping in the grooves of fate. He stumbles on, driven by her whip of force, his thought labors, a bullock in time's fields. His will, he thinks his own, is shaped in her forge.
Obedient to world nature's dumb control, driven by his own formidable power, his chosen partner in a Titan game, her will he has made the master of his fate, her whim the dispenser of his pleasure and pain. He has sold himself into her regal power for any blow or boon that she may choose. Even in what is suffering to our sense, he feels the sweetness of her mastering touch. In all experience meets her blissful hands. On his heart he bears the happiness of her tread, and the surprise of her arrival's joy in each event and every moment's chance. All she can do is marvelous in his sight. He revels in her, a swimmer in her sea, a tireless amateur of her world delight. He rejoices in her every thought and act, and gives consent to all that she can wish. Whatever she desires, he wills to be. The Spirit, the innumerable one, he has left behind his lone eternity. He is an endless birth, in endless time, her finite multitude in an infinite space. The master of existence lurks in us and plays at hide and seek with his own force. In nature's instrument loiters secret God. The immanent lives in man as in his house. He has made the universe his pastimes field, a vast gymnasium of his works of might. All-knowing, he accepts our darkened state, divine, wears shapes of animal or man. Eternal, he assents to fate and time. Immortal, dallies with mortality.
The all-conscious ventured into ignorance. The all-blissful bore to be insensible. Incarnate in a world of strife and pain, he puts on joy and sorrow like a robe and drinks experience like a strengthening wine. He whose transcendence rules the pregnant vasts, present now, dwells in our subliminal depths, a luminous individual power alone. The absolute, the perfect, the alone has called out of the silence his mute force, where she lay in the featureless and formless hush, guarding from time by her immobile sleep the ineffable presence of his solitude. The absolute, the perfect, the alone has entered with his silence into space. He has fashioned these countless persons of oneself. He has built a million figures of his power. He lives in all who lived in his vast alone. Space is himself, and time is only he. The absolute, the perfect, the immune, one who is in us as our secret self. Our mask of imperfection has assumed. He has made this tenement of flesh his own, his image in the human measure cast, that to his divine measure we might rise. Then, in a figure of divinity, the Maker shall recast us and impose a plan of Godhead on the mortal's mold, lifting our finite minds to his infinite, touching the moment with eternity. This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven. A mutual debt binds man to the supreme. His nature we must put on as he put ours. We are sons of God and must be even as he. His human portion, we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox with God for key.
But meanwhile, all is a shadow cast by a dream. And to the musing and immobile spirit, life and himself don the aspect of a myth, the burden of a long unmeaning. For the key is hid, and by the inconscient kept. The secret God beneath the threshold dwells. In a body obscuring the immortal spirit, a nameless resident, vesting unseen powers with matter's shapes and motives beyond thought, and the hazard of an unguessed consequence, an omnipotent, indiscernible influence, he sits, unfelt by the form in which he lives, and veils his knowledge by the groping mind. A wanderer in a world his thoughts have made, he turns in a chiaroscuro of error and truth to find a wisdom that on high is his. As one forgetting, he searches for himself. As if he had lost an inner light, he seeks. As a sojourner lingering amid alien scenes, he journeys to a home he knows no more. His own self's truth he seeks, who is the truth. He is the player who became the play. He is the thinker who became the thought. He is the many who was the silent one. In the symbol figures of the cosmic force, and in her living and inanimate signs, and in her complex tracery of events, he explores the ceaseless miracle of himself, till the thousandfold enigma has been solved in the single light of an all-witnessing soul. This was his compact with his mighty mate. For love of her and joined to her forever, to follow the course of time's eternity, amid magic dramas of her sudden moods, and the surprises of her masked idea, and the vicissitudes of her vast caprice.
Two seems his goals, yet ever are they one, and gaze at each other over bournless time. Spirit and matter are their end and source. A seeker of hidden meanings in life's forms, of the great mother's wide uncharted will, and the rude enigma of her terrestrial ways, he is the explorer and the mariner on a secret inner ocean without bourne. He is the adventurer and cosmologist of a magic earth's obscure geography. In her material order's fixed design, where all seems sure, and even when changed, the same, even though the end is left forever unknown, and ever unstable is life's shifting flow, His paths are found for him by silent fate. As stations in the age's weltering flood, firm lands appear that tempt and stay awhile. Then new horizons lure the mind's advance. There comes no close to the finite's boundlessness. There is no last certitude in which thought can pause, and no terminus to the soul's experience. A limit, a farness never wholly reached, an unattained perfection calls to him from distant boundaries in the unseen. A long beginning only has been made. Do we pause or shall we continue?
We only have a little way to go before the end of the canto. We might just go to the end and then discuss, maybe.
Okay. This is the sailor on the flow of time. This is world matter's slow discoverer, who, launched into this small corporeal birth, has learned his craft in tiny bays of self, but dares at last unplumbed infinitudes, a voyager upon eternity's seas. In his world adventure's crude initial start, behold him, ignorant of his Godhead's force, timid initiate of its vast design.
An expert captain of a fragile craft, a trafficker in small impermanent wares. At first he hugs the shore and shuns the breadths, dares not to affront the far-off perilous main. He is a petty, he in a petty coastal traffic plies, his play doled out from port to neighbor port, content with his safe rounds unchanging course. He hazards not the new and the unseen, but now he hears the sound of larger seas. A widening world calls him to distant scenes and journeyings in a larger vision's arc, and peoples unknown and still unvisited shores. On a commissioned keel, his merchant hull serves the world's commerce in riches of time, serving the foam of a great landlocked sea to reach unknown harbor lights in distant climes and open markets for life's opulent arts, rich bales, carved statuettes, hued canvases, and jeweled toys brought for an infant's play, and perishable products of hard toil and transient splendors won and lost by the days. Or, passing through a gate of pillar rocks, venturing not yet to cross oceans unnamed, and journey into a dream of distances, he travels close to unfamiliar coasts and finds new haven in storm-troubled isles. Or, guided by a sure compass in his thought, he plunges through a bright haze that hides the stars, steering on the trade routes of ignorance. His prow pushes towards undiscovered shores. He chances on unimagined continents, a seeker of the islands of the blessed. He leaves the last lands, crosses the ultimate seas. He turns to eternal things, his symbol quest. Life changes for him, its time-constructed scenes, its images veiling infinity.
Earth's borders recede, and the terrestrial air hangs around him, no longer its translucent veil. He has crossed the limit of mortal thought and hope. He has reached the world's end and stares beyond. The eyes of mortal body plunge their gaze into eyes that look upon eternity. A greater world time's traveler must explore. At last he hears a chanting on the heights, and the far speaks, and the unknown grows near. He crosses the boundaries of the unseen and passes over the edge of mortal sight to a new vision of himself and things. He is a spirit in an unfinished world that knows him not and cannot know itself. The surface symbol of his goalless quest takes deeper meanings to his inner view. His is a search of darkness for the light, of mortal life for immortality. In the vessel of an earthly embodiment, over the narrow rails of limiting sense, he looks out on the magic waves of time, where mind like moon illumines the world's dark. There is limbed ever retreating from the eyes, as if in a tenuous, misty, dreamlike drawn, the outline of a dim, mysterious shore. A sailor on the inconscious, fathomless sea, he voyages through a starry world of thought on matter's deck to a spiritual sun. Across the noise and multitudinous cry, across the rapt, unknowable silences, through a strange mid-world under supernal skies, beyond Earth's longitudes and latitudes, his goal is fixed outside all present maps.
But none learns whither through the unknowns, or what secret mission the Great Mother gave. In the hidden strength of her omnipotent will, driven by her breath across life's tossing deep, through the thunderer's roar and through the windless hush, through fog and mist where nothing more is seen, he carries her sealed orders in his breast. Late will he know, opening the mystic script, whether to a blank port in the unseen he goes, or, armed with her fiat, to discover a new mind and body in the city of God, and enshrine the immortal in his glory's house, and make the finite one with infinity. Across the salt waste of the endless years, her ocean winds impel his errant boat, the cosmic waters plashing as he goes. A rumor around him, and danger, and a call. Always he follows in her force's wake. He sails through life and death and other life. He travels on through waking and through sleep. A power is on him from her occult force that ties him to his own creation's fate. And never can the mighty traveler rest, and never can the mystic voyage cease, till the nescient dusk is lifted from man's soul, and the morns of God have overtaken his night. As long as nature lasts, he too is there. For this is sure, that he and she are one. Even when he sleeps, he keeps her on his breast. Whoever leaves her, he will not depart to repose without her in the unknowable. There is a truth to know, a work to do. Her play is real, a mystery he fulfills. There is a plan in the mother's deep world whim, a purpose in her vast and random game. And this ever she meant, since the first dawn of life. This constant will she covered with her sport, to evoke a person in the impersonal void. With the truth light, strike earth's massive roots of trance, wake a dumb self in the unconscious depths, and raise a lost power from its python sleep, that the eyes of the timeless might look out from time, and the world manifest the unveiled divine. For this he left his white infinity, and laid on the spirit the burden of the flesh, that Godhead's seed might flower in mindless space. End of Canto IV.
So in this journey, this travel across the seas, it's like we're all there with him, traveling along.
I've been sailing a lot on the Monterey Bay, and I just love this. These are great analogies. And the first line of the next canto really brings us back into the narrative arc. This knowledge first he had of time-born men.
This secret knowledge that we've been reading about.
I do feel that there's a lot here that I'm maybe not getting, you know, so.
Join the crowd, Jeffrey.
Maybe it's helpful to see this when he goes off on the mariner symbol. The mariner it's the emergence of consciousness. It's the stage in our development when we wake up to the realization that it's the soul that's emerging. We've evolved past a point where we're simply following nature's evolution, right? That's kind of what Sri Aurobindo is pointing to. The specialness of humanity is emerging, the emergence of consciousness, a consciousness that realizes that it can be in collaboration with the evolution, with the divine in the evolution. And that's this is the emergence of the soul, the mariner on the sea, testing things, leaving a little bit further from port, so testing the bounds of things, exploring the adventure of consciousness and joy. It's pointing to the emergence of the soul.
And so Sri Aurobindo sees humanity, this humanity that we know, this humanity that we look around and see, that we read about in the newspaper and so on, as unfinished. This is not the goal of nature, what we are now. And if you read, rather inspired thinkers or of what's happening now in the world, of all the crises that we're facing, if you read them and keep this in mind, you'll notice that almost everybody assumes that what we are now is what's going to go into the future. And that's what's going to solve or be destroyed by all the problems, all the crises that we've created. But that's not what Sri Aurobindo says. It's not what he says. He says our humanity is unfinished. And he's just been describing it here, as Matteo was saying. It's unfinished. And it's maybe, I don't know. I mean, in this canto, he says the paths of time are infinite. I mean, what the soul's journey goes on and on and on. But there's something that seems to be about to break open, or else humanity is going to fail. And Sri Aurobindo is a prophet of what's gonna break open in humanity. What new will come forward in humanity.
It's been a nice long beginning.
I love that, John, about this idea of humanity is unfinished.
It's a thing that almost every thinker today, I read a lot of people talking about the crises and what the issues are and so on. And there's hardly anybody that recognizes that. Everybody assumes what we are now is what's going forward. And that's really, I mean, if you look back, it makes no sense, because evolution has been proceeding for billions of years, and there's no reason why it should stop now. In fact, there's every reason why it should go forward now, because it's in crises often the new species or a new something emerges.
I think to some extent maybe that's what the movement that's struggling to find something else is dealing with, right? So
yes, I agree with you.
It's this recognition that in a way we're in. It's why I think we're in a kind of crucible, and the humanities can't stay the same as it has been in order to come out of the crucible.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think it's, anyway, I may be restating what you're saying in a different way. But.
So people keep quoting Einstein that you can't solve a problem with the kind of thinking that you created it with. But still, I mean, there certainly are movements. I mean, there's transhumanism, there's various that are looking, for example, for technology to take us beyond where we are now. But apart from the kind of fringe thinking like that, you don't find it very often. You do find it sometimes, though.
Well, Sri Aurobindo writes that quite clearly on page 55. A few shall see what none yet understands. God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep. For man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall not be till the work is done. We won't see it coming. You know, we can intimate, we can offer ourselves to that process. I think that's why we're doing this. Yeah, nobody knows. as the thieves in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his house.
That's right at the beginning of this whole section, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Which happens when darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast.
Mm, mm.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Huh?
That line sounds familiar. Kind
Yeah.
of rings true right now.
How long did it take him to write this? I mean, it must have taken, I don't think
Only
it's been done
40
quick.
years or so, and it's
Yeah.
not finished. It's clearly not finished. Yeah.
Because it's so
There.
dense with, well, it's dense with all sorts of things, isn't it? It's dense with
Yeah.
ideas, but it's dense with spirit, it's dense with poetry, it's dense with images and feelings, and it's and a remarkable piece of work.
Mm. Yeah, do you have any suppositions, Jeffrey, of why it's so little known? I've wondered that myself. For
Because
me, I've never encountered anything like it, and it feels so little known. We're actually a small number of people reading this.
but it was written in English.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, so he's not an English speaker at birth. So
Well, I mean, he went to England when he was 5, so
yeah,
for all intents and purposes, I mean, it's not his mother tongue, but he was separated from his family at the age of 5 and didn't go back to India until he was 20 something, till he graduated Cambridge, top of his class in arts and letters.
And since his father was a doctor and was so enamored of the British, I'm sure they spoke English at home.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. Exactly. Yeah.
And he
But-
had to relearn Bengali when he got back after college.
okay. But I mean, long poems are hardly easy reading for modern readers. I mean, you know, I mean, we're reading, Paradise Lost in the other parallel group, and you know, not a lot of people have read Paradise Lost either.
Yeah.
And that's been around for many more hundreds of years than Savitri.
Yeah, good point.
So even, I mean, I've read Spenser's The Fairy Queen, but I don't think many people have read The Fairy Queen.
I
You know,
haven't.
so it's just a form that takes an engagement to, you know, a sustained engagement, as we know, to read. And we live in a culture that doesn't like sustained engagements.
We live in a really distracted culture. It's hard with all the distraction to be sustained with something.
Yeah. Even though it's transformative to be engaged, right? So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, exactly.
Requires such a desire in the heart for something beyond what we know. You know, and there's very little in the world now that fosters that desire, because we get distracted. Me too.
I mean, I love film, but film doesn't do it. You know, even these long television series, they're all, even though they're long as taken as a series, they're still broken up in chunks, you know, in a way that this is not. I mean, you know, this has breaks, but it's not really broken up. There's no place where you can stop and say, oh, well, this is one thing finished and now something else is starting. You can kind of do that in places, but it's, yeah.
And I've definitely sampled what I think is the best of what's going on with visual media as far as global television series go. I watch, and there's very few moments. There's very few, like there's things that I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Oh, okay, this is an interesting theme or subject, but there's there's very few like incredibly rich, deep, special moments of connectivity. In some way, it feels like. Sorry, just a second. Dog is up to mischief. In some ways, it just feels like it's also feeding that, pulling the consciousness to the surface, right? Instead of helping to plunge into the depths. I think that it's possible with visual media. There's a lot of possibilities that are only just barely starting to crack the surface and to be explored, but it's still not quite there. It's still not, for me, it's not quite satisfying yet. Not like Savitri, but there's also, for me, there's almost nothing that's as satisfying as Savitri. If anyone knows of anything else, please, I want to know.
Well, there's some wonderful exploration of the mystery of nature and the interconnectedness of all things, which I believe leads to a wider consciousness than what we live in. There's a documentary out, which I actually saw a year ago. It's called Fantastic Fungi by Stamets. It's about the myceliums that are underground, really connecting all of life. You know, there's this very strange life form that they don't understand yet, and it is everywhere and connects everything. And just reading a book called Underland by what's his name? So
Is that
this
the
is also
opposite of
an
Overstory?
John McFarlane?
Is that the same author as Overstory?
I don't know.
No,
I
it's
just
not.
heard
Yeah.
of the two titles in the same breath, but I don't know if it's the same author.
Well,
Oh, okay, not the same
I think
genre.
this is an English nature writer who's really has really wonderful language.
Sorry, before we move on, what was the title of the fungi documentary? Fungi what?
Fantastic Fungi,
Fantastic Fungi.
Paul
Right.
Stamets.
It's interesting because I think we live in a culture, it's kind of obvious to say it, but that doesn't like the other, doesn't want to grapple with the other. It's you know, we're all, it's selfie all the way down. And of course, there's nothing new in selfie, really. I mean, there is new stuff inside the self, but not if you don't recognize the other even in the self. If it's all looking for the same, you can't even see it in yourself, right? So I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm saying trivial things, I don't know, but
Yeah.
because I mean, the fungi is about recognizing the other, right?
The interconnectedness of everything in the unseen world.
Yeah.
It's the unseen. Yeah.
Well, if we're on the subject of cinema, Linda Lester sent me an email the other day to a link to a website called Cinema Noasis. And it's cinema, obviously, and then from the Greek word nous, or like mind transforming.
Noasis, Noasis.
Noesis.
.com or .org?
.org, yeah. .com.
.com.
And it's a man who used to work at the Institute for Noetic Sciences. So there's the check. And he's created a website of reviews of transformational films. So interesting thing to look at.
Because I mean, you were talking about Underland, this sort of, or the fungi, and one of the writers that I've always loved is Lauren Isley, American naturalist, who also wrote about animals and the world that we live in these unusual ways and the unusual things you can find there.
What's his name?
Lauren Isley.
Isley?
Yeah, Eisley, I think.
Yeah, he has a real mystical streak to his writing.
Yes. Yeah.
Lauren is a he.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 He was a very
Lauren.
interesting man. He was an anthropologist, but a naturalist, and a brilliant writer. Absolutely gorgeous writer. So.
I wonder if we can, I don't have contact information for you, Jeffrey. I wonder if Matteo,
Email and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
if we can be on a little email list, we could send each other titles
Yeah, that would be great.
of things. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that Matteo, you have.
Super easy for me to
Yeah,
just.
Matteo could send you. I don't want to say it on a recorded.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
But if Matteo can send it to you, that would be the
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
I haven't gotten a reply from you by email, Jeffrey, so I don't have it. It hasn't lodged.
Oh, okay. I'll reply to you, and then
It hasn't lodged into my contacts. Let me see
okay.
if I have it.
Hang on. Let me have a look.
I have your email because I get the emails from Infinite Conversations, so I have your email. Jeffrey, it's
But
not
isn't
there.
that through Infinite Conversations, and that's posted to a forum?
I'm just about to look at it here. Yeah, I think you're right. Let's see.
I got it. I'll take care of it right now. I'm just going to send a blank email to everyone.
I'll send you a few titles of books that I have really enjoyed, continue to enjoy, about that the interconnectedness of nature, that I feel at least touches on something beyond our little selves.
The Overstory is a really wonderful book too, and it's also about that.
Who's the author? So many friends have loved this book.
It's a novel, and I don't remember the author, but I can send it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, send it to all of us.
Okay. Yeah, it's an awesome book.
I sent you my email on Signal.
Yeah, I just emailed the group. It's taken care of. Yeah. I just didn't have you. You haven't ever sent me an email, so it didn't log in contact.
I've been using Signal since you gave me the link. So
Good. Oh, with other people.
no, just you for the moment. But
okay. I like Signal so much because it's not owned. It's not owned by whatever that guy is that owns that social network thing that everyone seems around the globe seems to use.
Facebook you're talking about?
Yeah. Whatever that guy.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, that guy, the guy with the haircut. Yeah. Anyway, and Signal has tighter encryption, governance, open source, and things like that.
Okay, my dear ones, I'm off. Thank you.
Okay.
See you next time.
Me too. Is this a good time for everyone?
yeah, this is good. I've got other things today. So coming up to Christmas, I was going to say Joy and Noel. Merry Christmas to everyone.
Likewise to you.
French is your mother tongue, Jeffrey, huh?
No, it's not. English is my mother tongue, but I've been in Quebec City for 40 years. And so, I speak, French is my everyday language here.
Marco says hi, by the way. He sent me a voice note, says hi, and that he will rejoin us after the new year. And I was just looking at January. Wait a minute. Let's talk about this for a second. We're at 1st and 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that puts us on January 1st, New Year's Day. How is that for the group?
As far as I know, I can make it.
It's fine by me.
It's a wonderful way to start the new year.
Wow. I have no idea.
It should work. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to be. I'm going to be at one of my brothers, but so I'll be on your time zone again, Matteo, for that as well. So 10 in the morning, I think is probably doable, but I just need to work it out.
Okay. Well, we hope to see you then. We'll meet, and if you're not with us, we can go over some ground or whatever. We'll deal with that in the following session. Good.
Yeah.
Or if you can let us know beforehand.
Yeah, I will try
We are
and.
such a small group.
Yeah.
I'd really like to have you.
Ditto that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to move on. I don't want to move on without you, and then you have to go back and listen to a video or something. It's better to just have us all present.
Let's try for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll try and let you know. Yeah.
Good.
But I think it's probably doable.
Good.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Bon fête.
If I'm not too hungover from. Yeah.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bon voyage, everybody.